What if I told you that you are not behind, you are just early in your comeback? Listen carefully. Right now, you may feel like life is moving without you. Like everyone else is ahead. Like you're stuck in the same place, while time is running away from you. But what if I told you something different? What if you are not behind at all? What if you are actually in the preparation stage of your biggest breakthrough? Because most people you admire today once felt exactly the same way you do right now. Lost, doubtful, unmotivated, invisible. And yet, they made it. Not because they were special, but because they didn't quit in the middle of their silent season. And maybe that's where you are right now. Not the end. Not failure. Just the middle of your comeback story. This is the lie you have been told. From the moment you start growing up, the world teaches you a dangerous idea. That by a certain age, you should already be successful. That your life should already be figured out. That everyone should be moving at the same speed. But life does not work like that. Some people bloom early. Some bloom later. And some only bloom after everything falls apart first. And if you look closely, you will realize something important about people's journeys. Let me give you a real-life picture you can imagine. There were two friends who went to the same school. Same class, same teachers, same exams. On the outside, everything looked equal. But inside the classroom, things were not the same. One of them always seemed ahead. He passed exams early, got praise, and people called him the smart one. Everything came quickly for him, and everyone expected him to succeed early in life. But the other one struggled quietly. He failed some subjects, he repeated work, he felt embarrassed watching his friend move ahead. And slowly, he started to believe something was wrong with him. Years passed, and life took both of them in different directions. The smart one got a job quickly, but struggled to keep it. He was stressed, easily replaced, and always anxious about performance. Because everything had come fast, he never learned how to build slowly or handle pressure over time. But the one who struggled, he didn't shine early. He didn't get attention. But he kept learning slowly, kept improving quietly, kept building discipline when no one was watching. And over time, something changed. He became stable, confident, strong under pressure. And later in life, he built a career that the fast starter couldn't understand. Not because he was smarter, but because he had depth. And here is the lesson. Starting fast does not guarantee finishing strong. And starting slow does not mean you are behind. Sometimes, life is not about speed. It is about depth. Let's be honest for a moment. Feeling stuck is not always about laziness. It is often about confusion. It is what happens when your mind is carrying too much at the same time. Too many thoughts. Too many expectations. Too many what-ifs. And not enough clarity on where to begin. So your mind slows down. Then it freezes. And when that happens long enough, you start to believe something is wrong with you. But nothing is wrong with you. You are simply overloaded. Let me help you picture it, in a simple way. Imagine a phone that has too many apps running in the background. At first, it still works fine. But as more and more apps stay open, it becomes slower. It starts to lag. It freezes. Sometimes it even shuts down. Not because it is broken, but because it is overwhelmed. That is exactly what happens in your mind. You have dreams running in the background, fear running in the background, pressure running in the background, comparison running in the background, doubt running in the background. And while all of these are active at once, you try to function normally. So your energy drops. Your focus disappears. And you end up doing nothing, not because you don't care, but because your mind does not know what to handle first. And here is where most people get it wrong. They think they need more motivation, more inspiration, more pressure. But that is not the solution. Because motivation does not organize a confused mind. Action does. Even the smallest action. Because the moment you do something simple, you begin to reduce mental noise. Let me explain it like this. Think of your mind like a room that has become messy over time. Clothes everywhere. Books scattered. Things out of place. And instead of cleaning it, you just keep thinking, I should clean this room one day. But the more you think about it, the heavier it feels. Until one day, you decide to do something very small. You pick up just one item. Then another. Then another. And slowly, the room begins to change. Not all at once, but step by step. That is exactly how clarity works. It does not come before action. It comes after action. So if you are feeling stuck right now, it is not a sign that you are failing. It is a sign that you have been thinking too much without moving enough. And the solution is not to figure everything out at once. It is to start with one small action. Because once you move, clarity will follow. And once clarity comes, movement becomes easier. And that is how people slowly escape the feeling of being stuck. Not by waiting for the perfect moment, but by starting in an imperfect one. The day everything changes is never special. Most people wait for a big moment to change their life. A moment that feels powerful. A moment that feels emotional. A moment that feels like everything finally clicks. But the truth is, that moment almost never comes in the way people expect. Life rarely changes in dramatic ways. It changes in small, quiet decisions that look meaningless at first. Let me show you what I mean. There was a young man who kept trying to change his life. Every night, he would think about it. He would plan it in his mind. He would imagine a better version of himself. He would say things like, I will start tomorrow. Tomorrow I will fix everything. Tomorrow I will be serious. But when tomorrow came, nothing changed. He stayed in bed a little longer. He postponed his plans. He went back to the same habits. And this cycle continued for a long time. Until one morning, something different happened. He woke up and felt the same resistance. The same laziness. The same lack of motivation. But instead of trying to change his entire life, he decided to do something extremely small. He told himself, I will just sit up. That was it. Not change my life. Not become successful. Not fix everything. Just sit up. And that small decision led to another. He stood up. Then he walked. Then he washed his face. Then he stepped outside for a few minutes. Nothing dramatic happened that day. There was no celebration. No sudden transformation. No emotional breakthrough. But something had shifted. Because for the first time, he broke the pattern of delay. And that is where everything started. The next day, it became slightly easier. The resistance was still there, but weaker. And slowly, day by day, he began to build a new pattern. Not through motivation, but through repetition. And one day, he looked back and realized something powerful. He was no longer the same person who kept saying, tomorrow. And that is the truth most people miss. The day your life changes is not special when it is happening. It only looks special when you look back at it later. Because real change is not loud. It does not announce itself. It starts quietly, in moments that feel too small to matter. But those small moments are exactly what build a different future. So if you are waiting for a perfect day to change your life, You may wait forever. Because the real turning point is not a special day. It is a simple decision you repeat when nothing feels different yet. Discipline is not always loud. It does not feel exciting. It does not always feel meaningful in the moment. And most of the time, it does not feel like progress at all. But discipline is what separates people who only dream from people who actually become. Let's make it real. Think about someone trying to change their life through fitness. At the beginning, everything feels powerful. There is motivation. There is energy. There is excitement. They imagine a new body, a new lifestyle, a new version of themselves. But after a few days, something changes. The excitement fades. The body becomes sore. The routine feels heavy. And suddenly, it is not exciting anymore. It becomes repetition. It becomes effort. It becomes discipline. And this is where most people stop. Because they were never in love with the process. They were only in love with the idea of results. But the people who succeed are different. They continue even when nothing feels special. Even when no one is watching. Even when they don't feel like it. Let me give you a real picture to understand this better. There was a man who trained early every morning. No audience. No applause. No one checking on him. Every day looked the same. Wake up. Train. Rest. Repeat. Some mornings he felt strong. Other mornings he felt tired. Some days he questioned whether it was even working. But he kept going anyway. Because he understood something important. Results are not built in motivation. They are built in repetition. And repetition is quiet. Nobody claps for someone doing push-ups alone in a room. Nobody celebrates someone waking up early while others are sleeping. But that invisible effort is exactly what creates the visible result later. And here is what most people misunderstand. They think discipline is about intensity. But discipline is not intensity. It is consistency. Even when it feels small. Even when it feels boring. Even when it feels like nothing is happening. Because something is happening. Just not in a way you can see immediately. Every time you show up, you are building a version of yourself that can handle more pressure. Every time you continue, you are strengthening a habit that becomes part of your identity. And slowly, without realizing it, you stop needing motivation. Because discipline becomes automatic. And that is when life begins to shift. Not in one dramatic moment, but in quiet, repeated decisions that no one notices. Until one day, people look at you and say, "You changed." But you will know the truth. You did not change in one day. You changed in hundreds of small, quiet moments. When you chose to continue. Let me tell you something, you're in a test you didn't notice. Life has a way of testing people without warning. And most of the time, the test does not look like a test at all. There is no announcement. No clear instructions. No visible score. It just feels like life is normal. But harder than expected. You try. You push. You attempt to move forward. But results are slow. Progress feels invisible. And motivation becomes inconsistent. And this is where many people misunderstand. What is happening? They think they are failing. But in reality, they are being tested in silence. Let me show you what this looks like in real life. There was a student preparing for exams. At the beginning, everything felt manageable. He attended classes. He took notes. He understood most topics. Everything seemed fine. But as time went on, something started to change. Distractions increased. Friends started going out more. Social media became more tempting. Fatigue started building up. And slowly, Studying became harder. Not because the work became impossible, but because consistency became difficult. Some days he studied well. Other days he postponed everything. And soon, he found himself in a cycle. Try today. Pause tomorrow. Start again later. And every time he paused, it became easier to pause again. Until the exam date arrived. And in that moment, reality became clear. Not because the exam was unfair, but because consistency had not been maintained when it mattered quietly. And later, when results came out, something interesting was observed. The students who succeeded were not always the smartest. They were the ones who stayed consistent when nobody was forcing them. One of them said something very simple. The hardest part was not the exam, it was studying when nothing was urgent. And that is the hidden test in life. It is not about how you perform when pressure is high. It is about what you do when pressure is low. When no one is watching. When nothing is forcing you. When you could easily stop, and nobody would know. That is where real character is built. Because anyone can try, when the deadline is close. But not everyone can stay disciplined, when time feels endless. And that is why many people feel stuck in life. Not because they are incapable, but because they fail the quiet moments. The moments where no one is checking. No one is pushing. No one is reminding. Just them. And their choices. And if you are in that stage right now, where things feel slow, where progress feels invisible, where effort feels unnoticed, understand this clearly. You are not being ignored by life. You are being shaped by it. And how you respond in this quiet season will determine what your visible future looks like. Because life does not only reward talent, it rewards consistency in the unseen moments. Let's talk about the version of you that wants to quit. There is a moment in almost every person's journey when giving up starts to feel reasonable. Not because they are weak, but because they are tired. Tired of trying. Tired of not seeing results. Tired of repeating effort without clear reward. And in that moment, a different version of you starts speaking louder. A version that sounds convincing. A version that sounds logical. A version that says, maybe this is not for you. Maybe you should stop wasting time. Maybe others are just better at this. And the dangerous thing about this voice, not because the mountain was impossible, but because visibility disappeared. But the ones who keep going are not always the strongest. They are the ones who continue even when they cannot see clearly. They trust the process more than the view. And something interesting always happens. After some time, the fog begins to clear. Slowly at first. Then more clearly. And suddenly, they realize something powerful. The peak was much closer than they thought. They were not lost. They were just in a hidden phase of the climb. And this is exactly what happens in life. There are moments where progress becomes invisible. Where effort feels wasted. Where results seem delayed. And in those moments, your mind will offer you an exit. A way out that feels safe. A way out that feels logical. But not every exit is the right direction. Because sometimes, quitting does not remove pain. It only postpones growth. And the truth is this. The version of you that succeeds is not the version that never wanted to quit. It is the version that felt like quitting many times, but kept going anyway. Even slowly. Even tired. Even unsure. Because success is not built in moments of certainty. It is built in moments of doubt that you survive. So if you're in a season right now where everything feels unclear, where progress feels invisible, where your mind is telling you to stop, understand this. You are not at the end of your journey. You are in the fog. And fog is not permanent. It always clears. But only for those who keep moving forward inside it. One of the heaviest thoughts a person can carry is this: I am behind in life. Behind who? Behind what timeline? Behind what rule? Because the truth is, life was never designed as a race where everyone starts and finishes at the same time. But the mind loves comparison. It looks at other people's progress. It looks at other people's achievements. And it creates pressure that was never meant for you. Let's make this clear with something real. Imagine a classroom. Same subject. Same teacher. Same lesson. But different students understand at different speeds. Some grasp things quickly. Others need more time. And some need repetition before it becomes clear. Now imagine if the slow learners started believing they are stupid, just because they didn't learn at the same speed as others. That belief would not be true. But it would feel true if they kept comparing themselves. And that is exactly how life works. Different people develop at different speeds. Not because someone is better, but because the process is different. Let me show you something deeper. There is a plant that grows in a very unusual way. The bamboo tree. For a long time, nothing happens above the ground. You water it. You take care of it. You wait. And still nothing visible seems to grow. To someone watching from outside, it looks like failure. It looks like nothing is happening. But underground, something powerful is taking place. Strong roots are spreading deep into the soil, building strength, building stability, preparing for something bigger. And then suddenly, after a long silent period, it shoots up rapidly, almost unexpectedly, growing fast in a short time. And what people don't realize is that the visible growth was not the beginning. It was the result of a long invisible process. And that is exactly how many lives work. What looks like delay is often preparation. What feels like stuck is often strengthening. What feels like nothing is happening is often foundation building. But the problem is, most people only value what they can see. So when they don't see progress quickly, they assume nothing is happening. And they give up too early, not knowing that their roots were just about to reach stability. So if you feel like life is moving slower than others, it does not mean you are behind. It means your growth is not fully visible yet. And visible growth always comes after invisible preparation. The real question is not, why am I not there yet? The real question is, am I still growing even if I cannot see it? Because if you're learning, if you're trying, if you are improving even slightly, then you are not stuck. You are developing. And development takes time. But it always leads somewhere. So stop measuring your life only by what is visible. Because some of the most important progress in your life is happening quietly, under the surface, where no one can see it yet, including you. Here is the shift that changes everything. There is a point in every person's life where everything begins to change. But it does not start with more knowledge. It does not start with more motivation. And it does not start with a perfect plan. It starts with a shift in thinking, from waiting to doing. Because most people are trapped in one simple idea. I will start when I feel ready. I will start when I have enough confidence. I will start when everything is clear. But here is the problem with that thinking. Readiness does not arrive before action. Readiness is created through action. Let me show you what this looks like in real life. Imagine two people who both want to improve their body. Both of them know what to do. Both of them have seen videos. Both of them understand exercises. But one of them keeps waiting. He waits for motivation. He waits for the perfect Monday. He waits until he feels ready. And every time he thinks about starting, he delays just a little longer. Now the second person is different. He does not feel fully ready either. He is also tired. He is also unsure. But he starts anyway. Not with a perfect plan. Not with perfect energy. Just something small. 10 push-ups. A short walk. A few minutes of effort. Nothing impressive. Nothing dramatic. But something important happens. The first person is still waiting to start, while the second person is already building momentum. And here is the truth most people miss. The difference was never ability. It was action speed. Because action creates clarity. And clarity creates confidence. Let's break that down. When you stay still, everything feels confusing. Your mind overthinks. Your doubts grow louder. Your fears multiply. But when you take action, even a small action, something changes. You start to see results. You start to feel movement. And slowly, your mind begins to understand what to do next. Not before action. After action. That is why waiting for clarity first is a trap. Because clarity is not something you receive. It is something you build while moving. And this is where everything in life begins to shift. Not when you feel ready, but when you decide to start unready. Because every strong person you admire today was once someone who also did not feel ready. They just refused to wait for the feeling to appear. They started with uncertainty. They continued with doubt. And they improved through repetition. So if you're waiting for the perfect moment, you may never find it. But if you start with an imperfect moment, you can shape it into something powerful. And that is the real turning point in life. Not motivation. Not timing. But the decision to move before you feel prepared. Most people overestimate what they can do in a single day, and underestimate what they can build in a year. That is why many people fail, not because they are incapable, but because they expect massive change too quickly. They want instant transformation, instant results, instant success. But real life does not work in instant moments. It works in repetition. Let's make this real. Imagine two people who both want to improve their lives. Both of them are motivated at the beginning. Both of them feel inspired. Both of them want change. But they choose different approaches. The first person decides to go all in. He wants to change everything at once. Wake up early. Work harder. Study more. Exercise daily. Fix his entire life in 1 week. For a few days, he pushes very hard. But soon, he becomes exhausted. The pressure is too much. And slowly, he stops. Not because he didn't care, but because the system was not sustainable. Now the second person is different. He does not try to change everything at once. He chooses something small. Something almost too small to take seriously. He decides to read just 10 pages a day. That is it. Nothing dramatic. Nothing overwhelming. At first, it feels pointless. 10 pages does not feel like progress. It does not feel powerful. But he continues anyway. Day after day. Even when it feels slow. Even when it feels insignificant. And something interesting happens. After a few weeks, 10 pages becomes a habit. After a few months, he is reading without resistance. After a year, he has read multiple books without forcing himself. And what changed was not effort intensity, but consistency. Because small habits do something powerful over time. They compound. Just like money in a savings account. At first, the growth looks small. Almost invisible. But over time, it builds. And then suddenly, it becomes something significant. That is how life works too. Small actions repeated daily do not feel important in the moment, but they shape identity over time. Because every time you repeat something, you are training your mind. This is who I am. So when you show up once, it feels like effort. But when you show up repeatedly, it becomes identity. And identity is what drives long-term success. Not motivation, not pressure, but identity formed through repetition. So if your progress feels slow right now, it does not mean nothing is happening. It means you are still in the building phase. And building always looks slow at the beginning, but becomes powerful over time. Because what you do daily is quietly shaping the direction of your entire future, even if it does not feel like it yet. There is something most people misunderstand about change. They think transformation feels dramatic while it is happening. They expect a moment where everything suddenly clicks. A moment where they can clearly feel, now I have changed. But real transformation rarely feels like that. Most of the time, it is silent. So quiet that you don't even notice it at first. Let me explain it this way. Imagine someone who decides to improve their life. At the beginning, nothing feels different. They are still struggling with old habits, still dealing with doubt, still questioning themselves. Some days feel good, other days feel heavy, and in between all of that, it feels like nothing is really changing. But they keep going, even when progress feels invisible, even when motivation disappears, even when results are not clear. They continue showing up, day after day, week after week. And something interesting happens over time. Without realizing it, they start reacting differently to problems. Things that used to break them no longer affect them the same way. Situations that used to overwhelm them now feel manageable. Their thinking becomes calmer. Their decisions become clearer. Their discipline becomes stronger. But because the change was slow, they don't notice it happening. Until one day, they pause and look back. And they realize something powerful. They are no longer the same person they used to be. And that realization does not come from one big event. It comes from accumulated small moments. Moments where they chose to continue. Moments where they chose not to quit. Moments where they did the work even when it felt meaningless. That is the silent breakthrough. It does not announce itself. It does not come with celebration. It does not feel emotional in the moment. It simply becomes visible when you look back. And that is why so many people miss it. Because they are waiting for something dramatic, while real change is happening quietly in the background. So if you feel like nothing is changing in your life right now, be careful with that thought. Because lack of visible change does not mean lack of progress. It may simply mean you are still in the phase where growth is building silently. And one day, without warning, you will realize you have outgrown your old habits, your old mindset, your old limitations. And you won't even remember the exact moment it changed. Because it didn't happen in one moment. It happened in many small decisions you made when nobody was watching. And that is the truth of real growth. It does not shout. It accumulates. Until one day, it becomes impossible to ignore. If you are still here listening to this, then understand something important. You are not the same person you were when you started this journey. Even if it doesn't feel like it. Even if it doesn't look like it. Something inside you has already started shifting. And the only thing that determines what happens next is whether you continue or stop. So keep going. Even when progress is slow. Even when results are unclear. Even when motivation is gone. Because the version of you that succeeds is not built in perfect moments. It is built in ordinary moments, repeated over time. And one day, you will look back at this season of your life and realize it was not the time you were failing. It was the time you were becoming.